90%.
And we're back. You're listening to the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show on the International Business Growth Radio Network. Today we are talking about getting to the promised land. After all, the promise is exitology. The promise is to buy back your time and freedom. So how do we get there? Well, we've talked about some of the internal questions that one might have and some of the things that one might do about those internal questions that might drive them to seek out a method to buy back your time and freedom. We've talked about the 4 exits of where you might end up and some of the pros and cons of them. And we've also talked about creating your new reality. So you've done all these things now. What does it look like to have commitment? What does it look like to have clarity? What kind of questions should you be asking? Well, first of all, I think about over a decade ago, I've been very fortunate in my business career to find myself rubbing elbows with some of the smarter, and I might even say wiser business people who've been running around. And one of these gentlemen who I ran across, this gentleman named Ted Nicholas, and about 10 or 11 years ago, maybe even 12 years ago, Ted Nicholas was putting on one of his very last seminars. And if you don't know who Ted Nicholas was, I want to first give you a Ted Nicholas quote because it really hit me hard. And Ted Nicholas said that entrepreneurs are the unsung heroes of the world. Small business owners, not giant corporations, create nearly all personal wealth as well as 75% of all new jobs. And Ted Nicholas is right. You've heard me say similar things, backed up by other stats, grabbed from other places. But he was saying that a long time ago, and he was saying that all the way back, long time. And Ted Nicholas first became famous, I would say, in business circles as the guy who had these long-form sales letters in various business magazines with titles saying things like, start your own corporation for under $75, right? Things of that nature. And he would write these long-form sales letters, and he was a direct mail guy. So what is direct mail? Well, direct mail is simply using the power of persuasion, using the power of the written word to do most of the sales process for you. And, you take that same concept from the 70s. Think of Columbia House and their direct response. Tape a penny to this ad, send it in, and all of a sudden we're sending you CDs, right? I mean, this concept has been around for a very, very long time. With the internet, we take so much of it for granted with the permission-based marketing and the funnels and all this other stuff. Ted Nicholas was a pioneer in this area. And no matter the media, Ted Nicholas's words and wisdom both moved people to action, but also shared a lot of wisdom. And I want to share another quote from Ted Nicholas with you as we're thinking about commitment, clarity, and questions to be asking. And this one is about clarity. The quote is this: there is no wasted energy in the universe. Make every move you make count and be worthy of you. And so the folks that we're serving here at Exitology are the unsung heroes of the world. You think about the vast majority of the folks that we work with, industrial services, it's dirty work. Manufacturers, founder-led industrial companies, blue-collar companies, it's dirty work. These are unsung heroes. And frankly, they deserve to reap all of the rewards of their hard work. And these are the people who are providing good jobs, dare I even say good American jobs, because I am in America. So I want to take a moment here and pontificate on why and how we got here. So this unsung hero, this forgotten man who we've talked about, this forgotten man and woman, and they don't have to be American, but this person who is really bringing a lot of value to the world. You know, over the journey that we've been on over the last 52 or so episodes, we've really come a long way. And I want to share with you that we're really just at the beginning, but we started with talking about, you know, what does it look like? What is the dire state of today's business owner? And then we moved into why it's so important to create profits, but then build from profits, because that's the foundation. 75% of new jobs are created by you and people like you, right? The corporation just harvests the value and then keeps it going. So that's not inspiring to me. Maybe it is to you. It's not to me. Number 2, let the gold come to you. What did that look like? Well, we talked about the gold panner, the gold miner, and the gold miller. And then we started to talk about what is the difference between a miner and a miller. And if you remember this, we talked a lot about the hustle mindset versus the growth mindset. And the hustle mindset, that's the miner. I'm just going to bang my head harder against a wall of rock until I find more gold. The miller solves massive problems for everybody involved, generational people involved, and creates transferable wealth, even though it might get weird along the way. Then we talked about how businesses grow and die. We talked about how do we extend the growth phase. We talked about creating infinite runway, which is the difference between startup culture versus sustainable culture. We talked about creating momentum. We might have had our strongest episode in the last few weeks. And if you haven't heard it, I'm going to invite you to go back around David versus Goliath. And again, going back to who we support and who we're for. The little guy, David, right? There's always another Goliath running around. Faceless, nameless corporation, reshuffling. You know, you think about what half the time, what do these corporations do? Can I go on my soapbox? Permission to soapbox for a minute? What do they do half of the time? You've got like 4 corporations doing the same stuff pretty much. And then somebody says, you know what? You sell me a bunch of these assets that kind of look like the same group of these assets over here. And then I'll rearrange my assets over here. We'll take this division. We'll reshuffle this division over here. We'll all these things that were redundant 20 years ago, we'll create some new redundancies by reshuffling all these things over here. And, maybe we'll fire a bunch of people in the process, and then the stock goes up a little bit. It hurts the worker. It hurts the end user. It hurts whoever. No worries. We've got that covered under lobbies, right? We'll just write some new laws. It doesn't make sense to me, friends. Maybe it makes sense to you. I don't know. What does make sense to me, though, is another thing we talked about, economic moat. How do we create economic moat, right? The margin of safety. We dove a lot into why we need economic moat, how we protect the moat, how we create the moat, and why your buyer will be looking to harvest that moat. It's a key concept into how we, on average, see an increase in value of businesses that we're working with 40% year over year. Economic moat, look it up. We talked about return on investment. We talked about cost of inaction. We talked about profits. We talked about profit gaps. We talked about how having a profit gap leads to a value gap, and then how closing the gap can take you to the promised land. We talked about the 7 key numbers. We talked about how to make sure that you are actually measuring yourself and improving on your way to the promised land. And then we talked about what happens when you go into the valley of death. We talked about which advisors you want on your team. We talked about how to discover your unfair advantage. And all of these episodes are here for you, the unsung hero of the world, to help this presentation and all of these presentations become part of your secret weapon, right? And so what is one of the next steps on the journey? Well, if you like enough of what we've shared with you over these 52 episodes, I want to kind of give you a lens into how we work with people. And what we do when we take somebody through the 8-figure growth blueprint is we do a growth gap analysis. And first we come from this perspective. Choose your lens, we call it. And we highly suggest optimism. So where's that 20% of your activities that's creating 80% of your wealth? Find that. And then we look to create space for your new reality, which we just spoke about a few minutes ago. And we look to run a sales and marketing organization first. And I think this is really where we differ. Because if you can grow that top line but maintain your profit margins, you have an endless runway. And that's how, no matter what, you add value. And there's some important questions that we ask when somebody goes through the 8-figure growth blueprint. And depending on how they answer these, it really tells us whether they get invited to go on the long-term journey of Accelerator or not. And some of these questions are, how do we know what to quit? How do we know what to keep doing? Do I have the right people in the right seats in my organization? It's a big one. Here's another one. Are we taking action for the sake of action instead of taking the correct right action? So the bottom line is this, my friends. If you're not happy with your results, if you're not happy with the direction you're heading, it's time for a better strategy. And so I will ask you the question that we ask our clients in the 8-figure growth blueprint, and that is, friend, where's the $1 million already hiding in your business? You found some answers already, didn't you? I'd invite you to visit Exitology.com, click Contact Us, and send us those answers. Let's start a dialogue. Send us questions. We answer them on our episodes here on the Exitology Unlock Your Profits, Unlock Your Potential show. I look forward to hosting you on the next 52 episodes coming right up. You're listening to Exitology on the International Business Growth Radio Network.